blah. Those kids aren't actually as good as everybody thinks they are. And then the next game, it's Celebrini, Smith,
Oh
and Graf,
yeah.
and they score. And it's just like,
He was so
fuck
mad
yourself,
too.
dude.
He was so mad about that because he knew he was going to get asked about it. He was so after the game. He was so mad when he was asked about it. He was like, "It's just the way things are, okay."
Who, Celebrini?
No,
No,
no, no.
Warsawski.
Warsawski,
Oh,
because
yeah,
you know
yeah,
how
yeah.
he was talking shit about the
Yeah.
Graf Smith Celebrini line, and that's why he was doing
Oh, I
things the
loved
way
his
he was
reaction.
doing. And then yeah,
I appreciated the fact that he knew it was coming, like, greatly. You could tell he was on the bench going, crap.
yeah, totally. He knew he was gonna get asked about it.
Yeah, my favorite thing is when a coach is upset that his youth are producing. Like, I think that really warms my heart. Is like, this is the guy for this team.
He just doesn't know what he's doing.
I mean, to be fair, this is his first gig in the NHL, so there's a lot of truth to that.
But he's also not getting better.
Oh, the more concerning thing to me is that I don't think it's just him. I don't think he's helping it necessarily, but
right.
I think it's an organizational thing, because when you listen to them talk, the organization sounds like it's on the same page with itself. Like that's the thing that's been kind of getting me lately about, just social media and certain reactions, is like the organization is troublingly consistent depending on whether or not you like what they're saying. The players are not necessarily completely on the, I wouldn't say they're not on the same page, but like it seems like when you listen to the org talk, they're all aligned, all their statements are aligning fairly well, which is good, because if you go back a couple of years, they weren't at all. Yeah. Like they were way off. So I don't necessarily think it's just him evaluating it that way, which is concerning, but I am happy that he's willing to eat crow and make an adjustment too. Like, obviously what he had wasn't, with Sherwood there wasn't producing. And so he was like, fine, I'll go back to Graf. Everyone wants me to go. And then it was like, great. And then we've seen Graf there since. So like, I'm actually like, I'd rather.
You're right. You are correct that probably that the outcome of that is best case scenario, and Kiefer probably was not just there because Warsawski wanted him on the top line. There probably was a let's see where he fits kind of mandate, right?
I don't know. I think they thought with Sherwood specifically, they got him because they want a hard forechecking power forward who also has skill, which is essentially what he is. And so, and so I think the mistake I think they made there, we're on, yeah?
We are actually streaming though.
Okay. Why don't we save it and then we'll do this. I wasn't sure. I was like,
I actually meant to there's the link if you need it.
Apologies, by the way, for being late. I totally thought it was new, and I was like, oh no. What is going on? Why is there a chat going on? That's on me. Okay, let me know when you guys are ready.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. We got
an hour ago.
We got 3. Yes, sorry, Colin. I don't feel bad for Ben. I feel bad for you.
No, you don't feel bad for me. I'm good. So.
Yeah, I have a play I have to go to immediately after this for my nephew. So, all right. Let me take some water, actually, because I just ate a peanut butter sandwich because I was hustling lunch. Probably the worst combination for a podcast. All right. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 229. And it is the post-Olympic, post-trade deadline, pre-playoff podcast is how I would maybe phrase it. And we've got 3 major things I think we should talk about, guys. 1 is going to be Sherwood and his contract. 2, we're gonna throw Nettie in there as well. And then 3, which is I'm willing to bet the bigger topic of conversation this week, is trade deadline grades and how we thought the Sharks did. So I'm Alex. Here with me, as always, is the Honorable Ben. What's up, Ben?
Howdy.
Look at you, cowboy.
Nothing right now. So.
Are you pulling for Calgary? Is that where that's coming from? Got that cowboy talk going?
God, no.
And then live from Sweden, reeling from a not the best showing of the Swedes, is Colin. How's it going, Colin?
I was Team Canada all Olympics long, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I got a stern talking to from some family members about that, and my 2 cents was it's not that I don't usually pull for the U.S. and usually don't pull for Canada because that is the case. I typically don't, but I just really wanted Celebrini to be happy. Just more than anything in the world. That would have been like a good birthday present for me. Not that my birthday is in the time of year. So guys, coming off of the Olympics, Sharks find themselves in an interesting position, which is sort of not in a playoff spot yet, but still, kind of just on the outside looking in with the possibility of making it in there. Now, the NHL schedule, because of the Olympics, is extra compressed. It's been compressed all season, but especially compressed in this back half. You got a lot of back-to-backs going. And the Sharks, technically, if you look at it from a perspective of how difficult the Sharks schedule is, it is a bit easier than the first half, but they're also playing, again, a lot of games running into each other, and also, Celebrini coming off the Olympic break. You can sort of see him a little out of gas for that first game back. He seems to be getting his wind going again, but, this is going to be an exhausting stretch for the team. Now, this position puts the Sharks in an interesting place, because if you're looking at the trade deadline, which just passed, there are a lot of different ways to look at it. There's there are a couple different philosophies as to how you should approach it. I think if you asked any of us, earlier in the season, we would have, and I think we did on the podcast, say you want to look at it from strictly an asset management standpoint. Get as much back as you can for players that are going to walk, just so you get something for nothing, even if it's next to nothing. Better than nothing. But the Sharks' proximity puts them in an interesting place. Now, one thing to point out, and we were just talking about this offline a little bit, is that the organization and the players, to me, I don't know if you guys feel this way. I don't want to say they're not on the same page, but they have slightly different mindsets as to what's going on right now. So the players very clearly want to push for a playoff spot. And you can see this, really coming out of guys like Celebrini, who mentions it every second he gets to, right? Graf, Smith, and not just the young guys, but in general, the players seem to see that it's within reach. They really want to go for it. Then you have the other side, which, whether it's Jonathan Becker or Mike Grier or, the scouts that have talked, or, the assistant coaches interviews, and even, listening to guys like Hannon and stuff, during the period intermissions and stuff like that. There's this other side of it, which is, that's fine. We're still on our plan. We don't necessarily want to kneecap the guys in that room, but the read I get from Grier is, maybe flippant is the wrong word, but he seems like, they've earned a shot to push for it. Great. But, we're still looking. So as part of that, the Sharks got Sherwood. Now, there were a couple of reactions to this. There was and both are fair, to be clear. There was oh God, what are the Sharks doing? Why are they making a push for the playoffs? But then if you listen to Grier after that trade, he laid it out very clearly. No, this is a guy that we were targeting. This is a guy we want for the medium term. We did not think he would be available in the offseason with him being on the market now. So we got him now. Fingers crossed that we signed him and it works out that way. Otherwise, I think we all agree, a little bit of egg on face, unless they had flipped him at the deadline for something, that either completely equalized what they gave up or maybe gained. That would have been good asset management. In the end of the day, they were able to re-sign him. Now, contract-wise, it's interesting. First of all, he was injured when he came in. So he had only really played, 3 games before they kind of needed to figure out whether or not to shit or get off the pot here. And that obviously affects quite a bit. So the Sharks wind up re-signing him for, what was it like? I'm blanking on it all of a sudden. Was it 5 and 5?
Yeah, it's 5 for 5.75.
Yeah. Now the thing to note about this is that a number we like? I don't think so. But the way that it's laid out, just as far as you can, does work out to the team's advantage over time, because essentially what happens is He starts off, he's got a no trade clause through his contract, essentially no movement clause this year, no trade clause. And it starts off with a limited number of teams that he will be willing to waive to go to. And then year over year, it gets that list gets substantially larger of teams that he will be willing to go to. So it's not like a full no trade clause or no movement clause where we're basically completely stuck with him forever. I mean, those are the kind of the contracts you used to see Doug Wilson do, right, when they would run extensions. So there is wiggle room here. But let's talk Sherwood and this contract here. What is your guys' impression of him been? And I know there's been a limited number of games. How do you think the Sharks should be using him versus how they are using him, assuming it's different? And what's your take on this contract overall?
Well, like the problem is he didn't get rid of enough bodies to bring up any of the other people we have who could possibly be slotting into the same kind of role as Sherwood. So it's again this situation where Greer's signs somebody or gets somebody and says, "Ooh, always wanted this guy, really perfect for this role I have imagined him in." And you point to our roster pool and go, "Well, what about that guy? That guy could do that role." And he just kind of ignores it, and it's like, here we have too many contracts. We get our youth up into situations for them to actually grow and learn, and we're going to bring in some older veteran who, hey, look, we'll get a year or two of goodness out of them.
I don't think they think those prospects are there quite yet. I think they think they're going to be.
That's the problem, is they need to be given the chance to grow. So
yeah,
Sherwood denies that.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I would say though that the organization has been fairly consistent with how they want. Now, Ben's going to throw out 4 examples where they weren't, and fair, Ben. I already know. I already know. And listen. The organization and the coaching staff, right? They reserve the right to change their mind and try stuff, obviously. But it seems to me like when Chernyshov came up, because I think Chernyshov is one of those guys, Colin, you're probably you would look at instead of Sherwood, correct?
Oh
yeah, right.
I mean, he did look at him, and we liked what we saw.
Yeah. So to me, though, and I said this at the time, and listen, full disclosure, when I say this, I'm not just blindly defending the org. I would prefer, if it were me, Chernyshov would be up full time, no question. That being said, Chernyshov was called up as an injury replacement. I don't think the Sharks, and he did great in that role, probably better than they thought he was going to do.
Yeah,
I don't think the Sharks were going to bench the guys coming off of injury because of an injury call up, and I don't think their plan was to have Chernyshov up full time anyway. I think they probably gave him a longer look than they had originally intended, and probably a bit as a bit of a reward for how well he was doing and how well the team was doing with him on it. But I don't think the organization ever saw his call up as a situation where like maybe he's going to be permanent. Now, should they? Sure, right? But I think from their development, the way that they explained their development philosophy is they really want these guys to focus on certain elements of their game and grow and lead the CUDA and then move up. So I think they've had him penciled in based off of his CUDA play. As someone who's gone to a lot of CUDA games, guys like him and Musty in particular, and Beesdet, sure, too. I think he's more trade bait. Those guys have done a great job, pretty much all you can ask of them to do at the AHL level. So I think they have them penciled in as strong, roster options come camp, assuming they don't just have a really crap camp. But I totally hear you, Colin. I don't think the org looked at them as, I don't think the org looked at a guy like Sherny and was like, this year. And you look at him next year.
But like, I feel like there's always a double bind argument being made by this organization where, we want them to get down and show they can win in the small team and get back up into the big leagues and carry that winning forward. But when we bring them up, they do well.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not ready yet. We need to give them time. It's like, well, where are you going to give them time? And it's like, no, we're going to bring the veterans in to establish the locker room, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, cool. So when's the team going to be winning? We're going to build into it. You can't just pivot a team on a dime. It's like, Well, great. If we can't pivot on the dime,
Did
why are we
anybody
not
ask
using these
Macklin
people in?
Celebrini that question?
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but
I think part of it, and we'll talk about it more a little bit later here, but I do think a part of it influences and influenced and was always going to this trade deadline and this offseason as well, because the Sharks have a lot of players coming off the books. And this offseason was the one where those spots were going to open en masse. And so I think if you look at the Sharks from the perspective of, what Greer, said in the beginning and sort of continues to say is, it's like a 3 to 4 year thing. We're in about, year 2-ish, 3-ish of that I think they're trying to time it. And I think where they're happy and where fans should be happy too is I think some of these players are ahead of their projected timeline. Again, I think Chernyshov is a great example of a guy who came up and was just ready to go. I mean, honestly, I would say pretty much every call-up that they've had this season has come in and made a more immediate impact than at least I would have expected. Like Cardwell coming up and down,
Well, but this is
it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Like, yeah, okay. So the prospects are doing well, and me and all you and all the other fans are super excited about this because having a strong prospect pool means we're going to have a really good chance at having strong depth moving forward for a long time, and that's exactly what a rebuilding team wants. So, I see Sherwood brings nothing that I feel we're not growing at home or that we need right now. And the only argument I can see to spending 2 second round picks to get Sherwood is, we'll pay less for him now than we would in free agency, except everybody's already blown all their free agent money and the cap isn't going up by so much based on what everybody's already spent that I think Sherwood would actually make that much more money in free agency. Like, I don't feel we saved anything, and what we gave up feels like we could have leveraged better towards something we needed more.
But the argument was never that we would get him cheaper than free agency. The argument from Greer was that the argument from Greer, just to be clear, was they thought whoever traded for him, and someone was going to trade for him, was going to extend him. So their concern was more they wanted him. They didn't think he would hit the market. I don't think that they were super concerned about the cost, and that's probably because they do have a lot of money coming off the books, and they do. I see fans make the argument of like, well, you have to overpay everyone so they hit the floor. I don't agree with that. They can hit the floor fairly easily, so I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think this is a guy that they really, really wanted. I mean, that's how they made it sound. They wanted and they didn't think he'd be available. Now, Colin, where I agree with you, and Ben, I'm sure you're going to agree here too, what the Sharks did right away was put him on the top line. And I would argue, Celebrini on that top line and his line mates, even if it's Graf, and I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I'm just saying Graf compared to like Chernyshov. Chernyshov's more of a power forward than Graf is. That line doesn't really have a big issue for checking. Doesn't really have an issue, being aggressive on the puck. And, I would say it's not that I find them defensively irresponsible either. They do like to do a lot of creative passing because they're kids and they think they can do it and they want to try it. And that some games, like the Blues game, that leads to a lot of turnovers. But that isn't where you actually need Sherwood on the Sharks. And that isn't the type of player I think Sherwood really is in the first place. Right? I mean, Vancouver had him up there because Vancouver has nothing. Like, they're a bad team. Ben, like, where would you have put Sherwood?
Yeah, no. I think so. So I think I established last time we talked about Sherwood that I didn't see the point in. I'm kind of in Colin's cap. I didn't really see the point in spending 2 second rounders to get him in the first place.
Right.
And I don't want to kind of hash over that again because it's what's the point? He's here. He's been re-signed. He's going to be with the Sharks for at least 1 full year with that full no trade clause.
Yeah.
So whatever. So now my concern is like, what does he cost? Where is he playing? And,
right.
To your point, he's not a top line guy. I'm not even sure he's the second line guy. And ideally with the guys that the Sharks have in their developing roster, probably in 2 years, the right place for him to be is the fourth line.
Yeah. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 5.75 per year is a bit of money to be spending for a guy who's a fourth liner
Or a winger.
and a winger, but if this is a really good team in 2 years, having him as a fourth line wing is a flex.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Right? Like, they will have committed to a guy that, probably is still playing pretty well and playing above your average fourth liner, particularly with his shot. He's not a great passer, and I think that's why he was not really great on the Celebrini Smith line, is that occasionally he can uncork a pretty good pass, but he can't really catch a pass.
Yeah.
Not from those two guys, and he can't really pass to those guys, which is why Graf is such a good fit, because Graf can actually, do both of those things.
Right.
So anyway, it's a lot to spend for a guy who's probably best suited on your third line and will end up on the fourth line of what is supposed to be a Stanley Cup, capable team. And I share Colin's concern that he's maybe blocking somebody, who should be at, from the CUDA coming up. Now, that said, there's a way to salvage this, which is to move on from Reeves and move on from Goodrow and move on from Dellandrea.
Yeah.
And make better choices as to who your other bottom six guys are. And if that world includes Kiefer Sherwood, while the Sharks are not yet paying mega bucks to every young guy they've got, then we're going to survive this, guys.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I mean, we can kind of transition this.
Those are all big ifs. Those are all big ifs.
Well, of course, but when you're creating a team, when you're managing a team, like you're playing off the ifs. You're hopefully making the correct decisions on those gambles. And I think this leads into that trade deadline discussion, right? Because for me, this upcoming offseason is a major offseason for the Sharks. I thought it was going to be last offseason, and then the cap went up. A lot of people, teams were able to retain their players. The trade deadline for me, while important, not as necessarily important or telling as the offseason, because the Sharks have a couple of options here. So just to recap, the Sharks going into this trade deadline, right? It was an interesting market. If you watch TSN, which I was, it seems like everyone was asking way too much for everyone. But the Sharks sort of had a couple of options here. Basically 3 options. They could, which I think what a lot of fans were expecting them to do or hoping for them to do, and again, which would have been good asset management from a return perspective, would have been anyone who's a UFA get something for them. Now, realistically, roster-wise, they didn't have enough. They have so many people becoming UFAs. They wouldn't have been able to backfill them all, correctly without bringing people in. And that's assuming again that they were like, a lot of those pieces are not necessarily even worth players. They would have been worth, probably late draft picks or fringe prospects. But that was one avenue, obviously. Now, what that does is, yes, it gives you any value you can accept, and any piece of value is more valuable than no value, and allows you to use those elements, package them in the offseason. You're going to need to package something to get an elite defender, which they need a top 4 defender really bad. I mean, more than one, really, but it's not something that they're going to be able to just easily acquire. It's something that most teams have to draft and then they lock in. At the same time, and this is something that Greer pointed out, and also Hannon pointed out, and again, the org is on the same page here, is that you do need to be somewhat mindful of it, because you can't just manage a team from a spreadsheet entirely. You're trying to build a winning culture. You're trying to get there. So whether or not you believe that the Sharks are a playoff team this year, whether or not I think the org thinks that they can sneak in. I don't think the org is fooled into thinking they're going to go anywhere in there. They do need to weigh, to some extent, how much do we want to kneecap that room and culture that we've been building for that? Now, the second choice that they had was to do absolutely nothing and let all those guys walk and figure out in the offseason, which is a little bit closer to where they landed. And then the third option, which to me would have been the most catastrophic option, would have been to bring in the wrong pieces for the sake of making moves, or because they thought those were the right pieces, right? So like if you didn't like the Sherwood trade, or like you were really nervous about hearing Dougie Hamilton's name and stuff like that, they could have gone in here, flipped for bad things that would have, kept the handcuffs on. Instead, what they wound up doing was having a very, very, very quiet deadline, Most of those UFAs, they did not, pretty much all UFAs, they did not get out. Liljegren is really the only thing of note that went out, and that was for a fourth round pick. And then they basically stood pat. It sounds like they tried a couple of things, and either the prices were too high, they weren't working out, or, as Grier put it, he had to look at it from a perspective of, we want to move this piece, but is the return worth the effect it's going to have in the locker room in this stretch? And these guys have worked really hard to, especially the kids, to get here. No, listen, I'm just telling you verbatim what he has been saying, right? So they don't do anything. Now, we swing back around to the Sherwood note, Ben, that you brought up, which I think is a great point. And this is sort of how I'm looking at it too. This offseason is still the most important thing here. If the Sharks start to extend or opt to retain pretty much any of these, upcoming UFAs, I think that's a huge mistake. If they don't, now you do have the room for the Chernishovs, the Musties, Sherwood. Now, obviously, you have to play Sherwood in the correct position. And Ben, I totally agree with you. I think he's a third line guy. I think his game has more than one dimension to it, which is good, but he's not first or second line.
I do want to point out that the UFAs coming off the books are all on defense, right?
Yeah.
So, what we have is a series of, Ryan Reeves is the one forward UFA, and I hope they don't tender Ty Dellandrea, but they seem to be
right.
Yeah,
I'm assuming. Right. I'm assuming they're not, and I hope they buy out Goodrow, and then you got 3 spots opening up right there, right? And you're going to trade something for defense. You're going to have to.
But they're going to have to trade something good, and that's the problem. Is all the things we want to get rid of are bad, and they were always going
to have to. But listen, I'm not surprised to hear Eklund's name being dangled out there.
No, I've been saying it for like a year.
Right. Regardless, they are going to have to give up something decent to get that defender. Period.
And I think we are in the third worst case scenario, because I would argue that adding Sherwood and losing Liljegren makes us better, and we don't need to be getting better.
But I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah,
we
I don't agree.
We got that much better.
I didn't say a lot. I just mean a little bit, and we just need to honestly, be a little bit better to really mess up this season.
Liljegren was not the problem on defense, and he wasn't even playing the last few games that the Sharks were winning anyway. So, look, here's the problem that I had with the trade deadline, which is, I'm relieved that Grier didn't fuck up the trade deadline by making a terrible trade. I'm relieved.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give him fucking credit for doing his job, which is to not fuck up the trade deadline.
Right.
But I'm relieved. Okay. So great. You didn't fuck things up, but you also didn't execute on any fucking goal whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. Like, Mario Ferraro should not be here anymore. Period.
Agree.
Period. You had, he's a UFA who probably is, please God, let him walk away and go get a contract from someone else. But I'm not convinced that the Sharks won't now succumb to sunk cost fallacy and re-sign him.
Yeah.
So that scares the shit out of me. That's problem one. Problem two is you moved out a right defender, and we don't have any right defenders in our system because you fucking traded Jack Thompson 5 days ago. So there's problem two. Yeah. Right defenders are really fucking expensive even when they're bad. See also this trade deadline where like 5,000 old right defenders, bad and mediocre, went for incredible cost. Now, again, I'm kind of glad that the Sharks didn't move something for one of those guys, because it's not the year to do it. But where the hell are you going to get them? Because there aren't any in free agency.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not convinced that we have the assets to get even mediocre right defensemen without really doing damage to our strength, which is the forward core. So we're in a real bind, particularly when we misevaluate defensemen like Jack Thompson, who would be a serviceable NHLer, as compared to John Klingberg, who loves to turn the puck over in his own zone as if he is a clone of Mario Ferraro.
Yeah, though, to be clear, and I'm not saying Klingberg deserves to be where he is. Jack Thompson, at best, is like a depth bottom pairing guy.
Sure, but the
Right.
Sharks don't even have that.
No, I know the Sharks,
Right?
and the Sharks. To answer to your point, the Sharks think that despite the fact that Klingberg is not it anymore, that he's that top pairing guy, right? So I
Yeah.
totally agree.
And then, so just to add to it, I would re-sign Vincent Descharnay, both because he's extremely good on the PK, and he'll be relatively cheap, and he's a right defenseman, and you absolutely need him. Because I
Yeah.
don't want to re-sign Klingberg, and we don't want every one of our prospects playing their offhand like poor Mukmadillan has to do right now. So it's, the Sharks are, and I don't have any faith in Nolan Allen because the guy doesn't project anything more than himself like a seventh D. So the defense is a mess, and I don't know what Greer's really going to do about it, except probably have to send out a guy we'd prefer he not send out to accomplish his goals in the offseason, which is bad GMing, just bad.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and I agree with you. Like, if you were to ask me to grade the trade deadline for the Sharks, I'd put it at like a D, not an F, not an F, because he could have really seriously screwed up by bringing the wrong guys in and the wrong contracts. But
he's
also
still in a position where he's going to have to do it at some point. That's the problem.
And I've had a lot of people ask me too about, because we have a lot of new hockey fans coming off of the Olympics, which is awesome, and Celebrini hype in the Bay Area. So I've had a lot of people, pinging me. I don't know if you guys have had that happen to you. They're sort of trying to learn the ropes and asking me. And a lot of them have asked about, defensemen in free agency. And what I pointed out to them is the Sharks can get better with UFA defensemen because the Sharks' current defense is so bad.
Yeah.
What they're not going to get in that, it'll have to come via a trade, is they're not going to get a long-term D to grow with. And if you listen to Greer, that was one of the things he talked about post-trade deadline, which again to me is a positive because at least it seems like he understands what he needs in that step. But he mentioned that they were looking for a young guy in his early mid-20s who could grow with the team. Now, there are a couple of names that were floated around the deadline, and even before that, all the way back to the Timo Meier trade, with the Devils, that maybe fall into that category whether you like them or not. So it seems like he understands that. But I agree. And just to swing back around too, is it possible? Do you think that we do? Well, we only have Reeves and. I mean, technically, Regenda.
Right, but I'd retain Regenda.
I would retain Regenda too. I would retain Regenda. RFAs, right? It's Dellandrea, Kurashev, who I would retain personally. I like
would as well.
Colin Graf, who pretty obvious what to do there. Yeah. And then Ostapchuk, who I'm don't love and fairly indifferent to. You could you can flip these RFAs. You can also flip. There are other folks here that you could technically move if you want to. You could move Gaudette. I'm sure you could get a buyer for that. You can buy out Goodrow, which I would not be shocked to see them do. I would also not be shocked to not see them do. Who knows there? But they can make those spaces. But, if you're a Sharks fan, I would not be shocked. Like if you're thinking, ooh, the Sharks are going to be staying in good draft position and they're going to have high draft picks the next couple of years, I would suggest they're probably moving those higher picks along with a package to try and get that piece. And then they're going to backfill the other D positions with hopefully better defensemen than they, have had the last 2 years in particular in trying to backfill those positions.
But this is my big fear. And this is the thing that I just can't get over is Greer does not seem to be good at trades. Maybe he's great at setting the organization. Maybe he's great at finding the right people behind the scenes to make decisions and to find players for him. But every trade has felt expedient or bad.
Well, he takes the approach of an EA NHL or a Eastside Hockey Manager GM, where it seems like he goes in with a trade, Colin, and he knows what he wants. And the GM says no. And then he starts to just add every possible combination with 50 players to try to push it through, right? And that's what, like, you know, look at the Meyer trade. How convoluted was that?
But that's the problem. And to like, yeah, we are going to have to bleed to get what we want, and every really good GM flips that piece that is super valued, that they know is overvalued, that they can go and twist another team around to get exactly what they need. And I don't think that's Greer. Like, if he doesn't draft it, I don't think he's going to get like those core essential pieces, because I don't think he's going to make that sort of trade, and I don't think he's got the luck of the Islanders where he can trade away a top pairing defender and then pick up a Schaefer. Like,
Yeah.
And so I feel like he's not playing to his strengths, and we're going to be Edmonton next season, where we are amazingly, beautifully top heavy and having so much fun offensively and sweating bullets anytime where this team's defending.
I mean, that's kind of where we are right now.
It is,
honest.
but I'm going to care
yeah.
about winning next season, so it's
I
different in that regard.
I mean, the Sharks overall. Here's the thing. Here's the way I look at it too, and I don't want to, you know, paint it as overly rosy, because I see the same thing you guys are saying. Sharks are still in a really good position. They have great players who are ready to come up, and they have great players who aren't ready to come up. Guys like, you know, Ravensburg and stuff, who are looking, you know, great. Polkamp, you know, who's looking great in the NCAA. They're fine as far as a money situation as of right now. Now they can certainly blow that easily if they want to, but right now, Sharks are kind of in a fairly good spot. Yes, they really have to solve the defense, but the way I look at it is, and I don't know, Ben, if you would agree here, I look at it as your goaltending. Sure, some question marks still, but relatively okay, solved. Especially if you get a good defense. Their forwards, don't just take this season, but take the guys who we are clamoring for to come up.
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah. The forward core is set. It's more than
defense,
set, right? That's what we're mad about. Is that, you know, actually you could, with the guys on the roster right now, without bringing anybody up, you could have 12 NHL caliber players in the forward core, but they keep playing Goodrow, and then they sit Burashev for Reeves because Warsofsky's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
But you know, if this team really does want to contend for an actual Stanley Cup, they've got to have at least one elite defenseman that they don't have, and worse, they don't have balance on the defense. So the guys who are good that are in our pipeline, besides Polkamp, who, look, if all of this is happening, if all of what we're seeing on the right side of the defense this year is because Greer has already penciled Polkamp into the roster next year, then great, kudos, because I think that guy is a legit NHL player already, and we shouldn't have let him go back to college, but whatever. But what are we going to do with Cagnoni? We are overloaded with lefties.
Well, the other thing too with Cagnoni and Polkamp, and I like both these guys a lot. I love Cagnoni a lot. I think he should be up now. I've been hotter on Polkamp, just having gone to, you know, the last couple of rookie camps and all that kind of stuff, and really seeing him play. Those are two undersized defensemen, and based off of based off the Sharks' philosophy,
which is a wrong philosophy.
Right, I agree. But I know you agree with where I'm going here. I don't see the Sharks running two at the same time. Which will be interesting. I totally agree with you.
So I just want to put out there right now that is wrong-headed stupidity on the same level as putting Goodrow and Reeves on the ice right now, right? So I'm not gonna just accept it, right? Like this, they need to find a space for Cagnoni because he is like.
But let me ask you this:
he's better. Okay. So the problem is, Orlov is declining, but we're stuck with him for another year. He's probably not going to sit on the bench, which is a bummer, but whatever.
Yeah.
Shakir is good and trending towards very good. Dickinson obviously is getting every chance except on the power play to succeed, and I want to see him continue to develop. But
Yeah.
that also is a problem that he's not being given opportunities to succeed.
Right.
But that's your three lefties, right? Orlov.
Right. I think what I'm getting at, Ben, is, and I hate saying this because, again, I like both those guys. I would not be shocked, in much of the same way I would not necessarily be shocked to see a guy like Eklund moved. And I'm not advocating for Eklund to move. I like Eklund quite a bit, and I like Hagnoni, and I like Polkamp. But again, you're going to need to put something together in a package to get that right-handed, young, really rock-solid D that you're going to want. And you having to, again, the Sharks' philosophy seeming to be like bigger, harder to play against. Although, to be perfectly honest, it's not like I think the Sharks are a particularly large team either right now.
Bigger than we've been in years, actually. Ben and I were rolling through the old rosters back from 2008 while we were waiting for you. And
interesting.
This is one of the bigger Sharks rosters.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, I mean, if they move one of those guys out and they get the correct player in, I'm not necessarily, throwing a hissy fit. But where I would throw a hissy fit, and I'm 100% with you. Like, the big table flip for me for the Sharks will be if they. I don't think they're going to extend Ferraro, because Greer mentioned that Ferraro's camp.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about him.
Of
course.
Ferraro, Greer mentioned that he and Ferraro's camp said that they weren't going to look at anything until the offseason. And that was a request from Ferraro's camp, apparently. Now, again, they could change their mind on all that stuff, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Ferraro hit the mark. Now, that does not mean that the Sharks wouldn't necessarily put an offer in. But if they do, that's where I get really upset, because that's taking something that obviously is not working.
Yeah.
And clogging those spots, or getting in the way of a trade. And so, that would be a bigger disaster for me. But I think they can get it. I think if you look at it like this, and here's how I see their defense. Okay. So Sam Dickinson's going to be good. I'm not worried about him really at all. His offense hasn't kicked in yet. It's first season. He's, adjusting to the speed. They're not putting him in that, power play situation, Ben, that you mentioned. I think they eventually will, and he'll be fine.
I mean, yeah, just imagine how, Matt, if we'd gotten Schaefer, how fucked he would have been this year.
Dickinson would have been.
Yeah.
Schaefer would have been.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Sam Dickinson's body of work pre-Sharks, he was an offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
So, he'll get back there. I'm not too concerned about that. And even if he doesn't, and he's a really good responsible, defensive defenseman, great, fine. The Sharks, to your point, Mukhamadullin, that one's been interesting because, literally right before he had his kid, it seemed like he was, unhappy. And now, he's playing, and I agree with you with where he is, Ben. And then, Descharnais, that's going to be, I agree with you, but seat filler, obviously, it's not a long-term solution there. Then you have,
for sure.
Then you have Cags and Polkamp. Let's assume that it's one of them and not both of them. Let's just for safety's sake, right? So you've got what? Not counting Descharnais, you got Dickinson, Mook, and Cags. So you got three of those guys locked in. You could easily fill two steadier, decent defensemen. Yes, older veterans, sure, in the UFA. And so you only really need the one, big guy. And I think they can package stuff. So I'm not as, I'm more freaked out that they will misidentify some of those roles than I am their ability to get defense turned around. And if you get that defense turned around, the goaltending that you have right now, even just with Ned and Askarov's got to work on his glove hands. Like that whole, that's not great. But I guarantee you, if they fix the D, the O is going to improve and the goaltending is going to improve. And I don't think I don't think that's out of reach for them to do with what they have in the organization to move and how many spots they realistically need to fill. Now, if they decide Mukhamadullin isn't it, then that obviously adds another spot that they need to figure out.
Whoa. But you touched on something with the misidentifying of roles, because Ben and I, before we started, Ben and I were talking about how Misa's been just turning on and how glorious it is, and just
Yeah.
his crazy speed, and how the second we get a defender who can send that breakout pass, Misa is just going to be getting breakout highlights left and right. But the thing that fills me with fear, and I'm going to let Ben enjoy this little seed of fear as well, is putting Cagnoni on his offside and trying to force him to learn his
Right.
offside.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that is a hallmark of an organization that's trying to build a regular season team, not a playoff team.
Well,
Because regular season, you don't need that split second, that extra second on the offside as much. It's not as important. Whereas in playoffs, it is essential that you are as fast and as correct with your plays as possible. And I'm sorry, but Edmonton is one possibility of which road we're on. The other is Toronto.
I mean,
I'm terrified this org is trying to be Toronto.
There are certainly they need to address the right-handed D, no question. And can you train a guy to play on his offside? Yeah, it's harder than it's harder than a lot of people think to play that way. And it's not the same, but similar to the Sharks have always had this problem, really going 20 years, where they're like, we're going to get nothing but centers, and then we're going to put them in the wings, and they're just going to know what to do. Correct, and that's an easier transition than going from left-handed D, trying to go to the other side. So I totally agree with you, and I don't know. The games that I've seen Cags in, that hasn't been what they've been doing with him. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't necessarily. And I don't know how he would adjust to it. But in this offseason, if they're picking up nothing but left-handed D again, then yes, correct. That's another problem. But I think it's not. I think the way that I'm seeing it right now is, while there are certainly things that we don't like, decisions the org makes that we don't like, and look, some of them turn out the way we think. Some of them don't. Descharnay, if you'd asked me before, I would have said, I remember we got him. Hell no. I was pretty mixed on Mook, to be perfectly honest, and I've kind of come around to him, a bit more. And I understood, he was kind of the big part of that trade, but I wasn't seeing it. We saw him come in. Kiefer Sherwood is the guy who would I have traded for? Not really. Am I starting to understand where his value might be to this team? Also, yeah.
There's like a 7-year age jump you just sort of hopped over there. It's way easier to be patient with Ostachuk and the other kids coming in and finding their space and giving them the benefit, because it's okay, they're still growing, they're still becoming what they're going to be. We have enough of Sherwood's history to be okay, this is
but you can't look at it.
To be fair, and I hate to defend Sherwood here in this regard, but he is still trending upwards, actually.
Yeah.
He's 30 years old, but he has been playing better and better each season up to this point. To some extent, I think what's hard to project with Sherwood in terms of that fear we all have of the power forward who's turning 30 is whether the wear and tear he got playing in the AHL primarily is at the same kind of deleterious level as what he would have gotten playing in the NHL. And my guess is
I don't even think it's that, Ben. His style of play is a wrecking ball.
Right. But what I'm saying is those wrecking balls, if they're playing in the NHL, are hitting much harder objects than they were in the AHL. So we often are worried that a guy who is approaching 30 who's a wrecking ball is just going to go off a cliff, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to be yet, and that's good. And I wonder if part of that is because he just doesn't have as much wear on his tires. He still has some tread there, is the metaphor I'm going for. And I hope he does. I do think 2 or 3 years down the road, he's not going to be the guy that we see today. And that's obviously worrisome if he's playing on the fourth line and he's not scoring anymore, whether you can even move him, even with the generous change in his no trade status.
You're hoping for 2 to 3 solid, really solid years from him.
Yeah.
And then you're expecting him to fall off. And what I was going to say is, listen, I hear the, old dog can't learn new tricks. I get it. I totally get it. But being in a team sport, certain things are situational. 2. You got to be put in the correct position. Now, I'm not saying the Sharks are necessarily going to nail that. I'm not. I have no idea. I'm not going to worry about it until they start doing whatever it is they're going to do. I'm not going to get ahead and cause myself needless anxiety when the Sharks in general are in a relatively good position and just expect them to screw up every step of the way, because I don't think as a fan that's going to get me anywhere. Guy like Kiefer Sherwood, I think if you look at him specifically, to your point, Ben, I hesitate to really say Paz because he's not that level. But he is doing that same thing where he seems to be getting better, and
he's a bit of a unicorn.
He
in terms of his development curve,
absolutely.
Which, of course, I mean, he spent his 20s grinding in the AHL. Like, the thing I don't hate about the signing is here you have, and I said this on Twitter. You have a guy who has never had anything come easy to him,
right?
He is a guy who seems to be still getting better. And we're not looking for a guy to fill a top 6 role.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, the $5.75 million he's getting paid is third liner money. Yeah. So even if it's not today, it does get the Sharks a little closer to the cap floor, which puts less pressure on the team to, do what they've done over the last few years, which is accumulate bad contracts, just to get there. And I think the upside in the short term is fine. And I think the downside in the long term is every team has a contract they regret, if at least one, even as among the Stanley Cup favorites of a given year. And if that contract you regret is for $5.75 million, congratulations, you have this, the least worst bad contract in the league.
But I also want to throw in there too. When you look at Sherwood, and again, I just think for fans sometimes we need to look at the bigger, or keep an eye on the bigger picture as well. Sherwood, what he was accomplishing this year before his injury, he was doing on a really bad team, and they're bad, and they are bad. Like they're really bad. And so, to some extent, the reason he was doing it is because he was getting top line minutes, which he shouldn't be getting here. I understand that there's a bit of a numbers game going on there, but you would like to think that a player who's, trending upward, who was able to do that on a dog shit team, when you put him on a team that has better support, even if you're using him less, that he's going to be able to take those skills, translate them over, and fit in LA. Now, this is the same thing that the Sharks have sort of looked at when they've been taking those swings on guys like Kurashev and other areas, where it's sort of like, hey, whether or not the guys were actually doing well or just projected to do well and still weren't doing well, sometimes it is situational. Is this the right organization? Is it the correct system for them? Does that organization, are they deploying them correctly? Do they have the correct line mates? And so while, I get it, like, Sherwood is, while he's on that upward trajectory, is he going to like suddenly become like a mega superstar? No, obviously not.
And you don't need him to.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need him to at all. That's not the guy.
It's funny that you bring up Kurashev too, because he and Kiefer seem to immediately have had some chemistry, right? Sherwood got both of his goals off of passes from Kurashev, which again, please re-sign Kurashev for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that was a steal. Like if you want to look at the one of the bigger steals, I think Kurashev has really been it. I think his old team was stupid.
Oh yeah, the
totally
Blackhawks were
Blackhawks.
That's why they are where they are. So
Ned, so the Sharks also extend Ned, pretty reasonable contract to extend him with. Here's my 2 cents, and I'll let you guys throw in. So they extended it for basically 2 more years, $3 million per year. I expected and was kind of hoping for this, to be honest. I think Ned, outside of the blunders in the first couple of games there, which he very fully knew and admitted were pretty big blunders. He's been good. He's been steady. He's been better than Askarov, who's younger, obviously. Askarov's, this is not a a complaint on Askarov at all. The Sharks basically, they're in a situation where you have Askarov, which they're still betting is the future, and you can see flashes of that for sure, right? He's young, he's got some things to work on. Again, that glove hand.
It's just not flashes of the glove.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he could stand to be a little less aggressive in certain situations, but he's young, and there's time to get him there. The Sharks basically need a bridge between Askarov and what will likely eventually be Ravensburg, assuming he continues to develop at the way that he's developing now. I wouldn't expect Ravensburg to be rushed up necessarily the way Askarov has been, but I saw one of two things happening, and it's really funny because it sounds like they were both almost the things that happened. One is, I was kind of thinking they were going to re-sign Ned because why not? That would be an easy thing for them to do, to tie them over for the next 2 years. I don't think they were ever going to sign him for longer than that. That's totally fair. He's steady enough to do that. If they didn't, what I assumed was going to happen was I assumed that they were going to do the same thing but do it with Bobrovsky, who has not been having a good year, but it just seemed like the type of thing they would do. Coincidentally, there were points where it sounded like they were maybe rumored to be talking to Florida about Bobrovsky. So, end of the day, I'm happy with this. I really have not found goaltending to be the issue this year. Yes, there are some soft goals, like the goal last night that went in overtime is one where I look at and I'm like, kind of, Askey kind of need to have that one. But overall, you improve the defense there, which sounds like they're going to try to do in this offseason. Hopefully they get it right. These guys will get you that another year or two, and then hopefully by that point, Askarov's really fully ready to kind of take those reins and go. And then the Sharks either they have Ravensburg up, or they pick up another backup equivalent to Ned or some of the other guys we've seen over the last couple of years to help backstop. And I don't even want to say tandem. But obviously back-to-back games and taking off some of the load. What was your guys' take on this signing?
I was since I'm in this roster nostalgia mood right now, looking back through old rosters.
Niittymaki, you want Niittymaki? Is that what you want? The guy that was
I was going to say
and then got screwed.
You guys remember when Stalock was our backup and he would make like post-to-post saves and just slide all the way to the far corner of the ice. You just see him sail off.
He also was an adventure behind his net. So
exactly. Like Stalock was a heart attack in net, and like Ned is so nice and calm.
Do you know what's really?
Ned doesn't lose his head.
Do you know what's really funny is I was trying to, because my kids remembered the draft, but they. They're pretty young, so they kind of forgot about it. So we were talking last night when they were playing the Islanders, and I kept referring to Schaefer as Nolan Schaefer. And at one point, my wife goes, "That's not his name. Why do you keep saying that?" And I was like, "Why do I keep saying Nolan Schaefer? Who is Nolan Schaefer?" And they was like, "Oh yeah, he was the kid that came in, had 5 amazing games, and then we flipped, and then he went nowhere."
Yep.
So my take on this was, if you'd asked me about a month ago what we should do with Ned, I would have said, ride him and then trade him, right?
Yep.
Asset management. And, maybe that was still maybe the right call to do in the long run here. But then Askarov has kind of been real fucking shaky. And so I'm pretty happy with the re-signing. And I think the money and term is great.
Yeah.
For what Ned has been here, to get him to stick around for $3 million.
And the team knows him, and the team really likes him.
Yeah,
I mean,
again,
totally. Like you look at that culture, right? Again, you got to equally build a culture. It doesn't mean you take on stupid signings and do the wrong thing, Ferraro. But it does mean when there's good low hanging fruit like this.
Yeah, totally.
Take it. Like,
I think it was a great call. I might as well in this particular case, rather than gambling that you're going to be able to turn another backup into a serviceable NHLer, take the guy you did, invest that in, and keep him around. At least, and I do, honestly, part of this is because I think that Askarov, unfortunately, is not the future. And we're waiting for Ravensburgen. So,
yeah, I would not be shocked by that by that panning out that way either. I really wouldn't at this point.
I love Askey. I really do. His personality is incredibly infectious, and it's clear that he just loves hockey. But his glove hand is so bad. and I don't know that you can fix that.
You can
right?
fi-
That's a reflexes thing.
Yeah, you can fix it. I mean, what's not helping the situation? First of all, I'm surprised it took teams this long to figure it out, because it was obvious from day one. I think we called it out really early in the podcast and in the first couple of games.
Yeah.
But also, what doesn't help with that is that a lot of the times the goals, not always, but a lot of times the goals that are coming, they're coming from moves across the crease on the opposite side, and the defense is nowhere in position on some of these. Now, what you hope for is obviously your goaltender needs to be your last gasp defense there, but it is hard to play that position when the D is this bad, and that isn't making excuses. He does need to work on it, but again, I think if the defender is where they're supposed to be, I think it's still an issue. I think it becomes a bit less of an issue, and then they can continue to work on it.
I just have flashbacks. I just have flashbacks to Martin Jones, and it makes me want to openly weep, and I don't want to do that with the Sharks game anymore.
Think of it from the player's perspective. So, fun fact: Eklund and Ferraro are the two Sharks remaining from the Stalock period.
Yeah.
So, they must be saying, "Man, these goalies are golden."
Yeah.
Don't say anything bad. These guys are amazing. Let me tell you about some of the guys we've had behind.
Old man Eklund with his cane.
Exactly.
Let me tell you about the old days.
Well, and listen, I remember Sharks fans the last 2 years were occasionally on social media going off on the goaltenders, and then those goaltenders get moved to good teams. you see fairly quickly, at least for some of them, D makes a very big difference.
We are the problem.
Well, I mean, again, even again, telling new fans who were kind of watching, and they're going, "Hey, well, how come the Sharks struggling to get through the neutral zone?" And I'm like, "Why don't you look at the defense?" There were a couple of times last night. There was a point last night. It was I can't remember if it was overtime. Either way, the Sharks were on the power play, and the two players in the offensive zone, the furthest up, were Orlov and Ferraro.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What the F is going on?" Like, that's ridiculous. Okay, we got some games here. We're going to speed through these. Sharks Oilers, I went to that game. Holy crap, was that a fun game. Sharks win this 5-4. Nail biter going through. They get goals from Macklin Celebrini, Michael Misa, Barclay Goodrow, Wenberg, and Shakir Mukhamadullin, day after his partner gives birth to a child, and after an article pops up talking about how he's kind of,
he took the day off as if he was like pouting or something, and no, he was watching his baby being born.
Yeah,
that was so weird. It was so weird how the hockey the team writers seem to have something out for him in that. Like, it was really and then it turns out Eklund blows it. It's like, oh yeah, he had a baby.
Yeah, the dude's busy. What's going on? He's a little nervous. He's about to have a kid. So Sharks win this one 5-4. Next game, they had a back-to-back, and then they play the Jets, and another just barn burner and a comeback one of that. They win this one 2-1. Goal from Will Smith in the third, and then Michael Misa in OT. And I'll tell you what, Misa, if you're excited about him now, you just wait. Because he's going to have the same type of situation that I think Will Smith had, where next season he's going to come in. Most players need an adjustment period, whether they're going to a new team or whether they are going from a different league
to a new league.
Yeah, right. And so Misa, he's going to be great. There's no doubt in my mind. You can see it, again, like Askarov, you can see the skills, you see the flashes of it. And when they start to come out, once they're consistent, it's going to be good. I will say though, I do feel like there are two players who are a little unfairly snake bitten. One is, when it comes to scoring, one is Eklund.
Yeah.
The other is, I know this is going to sound ridiculous because he has a good amount of goals, but when you look at the amount of awesome chances that Will Smith gets, it feels like, to some extent, like I look at him and I'm like, any second he's going to have an even bigger breakout, because he gets so many amazing opportunities, and it's either like he's a little too close to the goalie, bounce doesn't go quite right, he hits a post like he did yesterday, Like I'm waiting for those two guys to really blow up. But great back-to-back games, and kind of, took this from are the Sharks really capable of making the playoffs because they just blew a bunch of games and we're on a losing streak, to, okay, maybe they can do it again and put them in position.
You do have to wonder, though, did Misa ask Celebrini to go into the Olympic team group chat and chirp at at McKinnon, just be like, scoring in overtime on Hellebuyck isn't so hard?
What's really great to see, and I don't necessarily think I don't think anything will come from it. Not that it couldn't, but there's been way too much talk, not even in the Sharks fandom, in NHL fandom, about McDavid's relationship with Celebrini and what happens if Edmonton doesn't get him over the hump. And I'll tell you what, I will take it, because we haven't heard stuff like that about the Sharks in 10 years.
Ever.
See, Ben, it's not just me. It's not just me getting on the McDavid and Teal hype.
Now, if they now I'll tell you what. Here's where I'll jump on your side here, Colin. If McDavid says he wants to come over and the Sharks can't get him on the roster because Sherwood's there, then I will rewind this conversation.
Wow.
Kind of riot.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, yeah.
I just want to add one thing to the Misa conversation. Imagine if he had a coach who played him more than 13 minutes a night.
Oh yeah.
Well, and also, I said this earlier, and they did it for a bit. I obviously, love Chernyshov up in the Celebrini line, but he and Misa have chemistry because obviously they played together. And so, man, again, you look at these lines. If you can keep Graf, Celebrini, Smith, and then you pop down Misa, Eklund, Cherney, or I mean, like, dude, there's so many combinations you can have within those the really top three lines that can be real fun,
it's legit.
And that's not even counting guys like Musty. I'm still convinced Beastet's going to be traded, but maybe Beastet, fine. So fun. Okay, then more games here. Then they had another kind of wild game against Montreal. Sharks win this one 7-5. Celebrini gets 4 points in this game. Goals from Graf, Misa again, Celebrini again, Wenberg again. Hey, you seeing a trend here? Will Smith again, Kiefer Sherwood again, and Adam Gaudette says, "Yeah, I'm here." Also, so they win that game again, pulling themselves into striking distance in the playoffs. Then the wheels start to fall off. Not bigly, but little. They play the Blues. This is not necessarily a terrible game, but it's a lot sloppier. There's a lot of turnovers. A lot of the passing magic that you see, especially between the kids, just wasn't quite connecting right. They wind up losing this in overtime 3-2. I think the frustrating thing about this game is that and the next game, both of these are winnable for the Sharks, and they just don't do it. And I think, when you do look at the playoff picture, again, I think we all need to be realistic. Can the Sharks make the playoffs? Yeah, they could probably squeak in. Are the Sharks ready to do anything in it? Not really. You need to be able to win these games. You're not going to win every game, obviously. You need to be able to win these types of games. And you're going to be playing, better teams as well. They did get goals from Celebrini again, and Sherwood again. And Khrushchev, on that pass to Sherwood too, by the way, as you mentioned, Ben. And then they had last night's game, which is the second of that back-to-back, lots of back-to-backs, and they lose that one 2-1. This was a much, I would say, slower affair than the other, 4 games, which were very, very, very high tempo most of the way through, if not all the way through. This one, the Sharks get a goal in the second from Macklin Celebrini, and they had plenty of chances. They just couldn't. They couldn't get around Sorokin. And at the end of the day, Bo Horvat and his goon squad and the refs who decide to stop blowing whistles.
Oh yeah,
score. And I'll tell you what, it was feisty, and like to see it. I mean, again, Macklin Celebrini gets cheap shotted, and the Sharks do react. So,
oh really? Did Reeves do anything?
No, Sherwood did. No, Sherwood did.
Sherwood took a penalty that then put the Sharks at a disadvantage. That was that was great.
Yeah, that's what reacting is, Ben. I don't know what you're expecting to happen here. You go in, you slam a guy's head, and then you take a penalty. Right. But they stood up. But Sherwood did come in and stand up for Mac and got the team got him. There was a point where I saw Smith and I'm like, get the F out of the scrum, dude. Like Celebrini at the end too, getting a little scrummy. I'm like, dude, you two, I do not want you in there. Please. I would like everyone else in there. Maybe not Graf. Don't put Graf in there either. Don't put Eklund in there.
Actually, I think part of Graf's job is being in there instead of Smith and Celebrini.
Well, like, if you had to choose one. Yeah.
Well, no, but like he also has Graf's bigger than Smith and Celebrini, isn't he?
I don't know if that man
is. But
they all look like babies.
I don't know. But this yeah, they do. Me and my gray beard feel so old. Sorry to be the broken record. No, I'm not. I would rather have the other kids up there too to figure out, who needs to stick up and who needs to help out. Because that's a huge, huge part of regular season and even bigger in playoff. Because I mean, everybody knows the lightning tactic of the second the whistle goes, they're looking for somebody to grab for a penalty.
Well, and just to touch on that too, and respond to Ben a little bit, I don't think that should have just been Sherwood going to the box either. I think the refs blew that. Completely.
The refs.
But the refs blew it all night. So I think fair. You have to read the room. Yeah. And
I think he did.
You can't put your team at a disadvantage like that.
I think he did. I think he did read the room. I think last night or. He read the room. The room was, we're not blowing any calls. And he's like, all right. And then they blew a call and he goes, what?
Yeah, no, that wasn't the room. The room was, these guys bet on the Islanders. And so they were only going to call things on the Sharks. So fucking realize that and don't give them the opportunity to fuck your team.
Yeah, fair.
But can we talk a moment on how well Celebrini handled the cheap shots and the bullshit and the shenanigans?
Not according to Shen in the post game.
Shen doesn't know shit.
What did Shen say? I missed
Sheng?
that.
No, he didn't. He basically.
Sheng. I thought you meant. You said Sheng, and I thought you meant Shen.
The reporters got to do a better job of reading the room. Speaking of reading the room, and also asking better quality questions. But Celebrini stormed off after he said he wasn't going to talk about that, and then immediately Sheng asked the exact same question again, and he was like, "I'm out."
Yeah, but because the well-known, secret that everybody knows is refs favor vets. And part of it is they've got relationships with the veterans just from, exposure. Part of it is just,
money changing hands.
Yeah, money changing hands, whatever. So, I think Celebrini, part of Celebrini handling it so well is the fact that he didn't, chirp at the refs all the time. He didn't flop. He didn't do any of the stuff that in 5 years I will be criticizing him if he isn't doing. And I feel he his IQ extends to just beyond the game. He understands that he has to earn his dues before refs are going to start giving him calls. And I think the way he's handling the chippy shit that's getting thrown at him is earning him that credit so that he can start pushing back in time. And I don't know. I'm always impressed with every aspect of this kid's play. And he came out of the Olympics angry, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, he when they asked him, how long that loss would stick with him, he was like, forever. So you got a kid who hates to lose, and you got and again, listen, I understand Greer needing to be responsible, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm shrugging that off at the roster. You can't always just listen to what the locker room says, but I also think you do need to pay attention to where your players are, where the kids are, and they for themselves want to make the push. Don't do anything stupid. Don't pick up the wrong pieces. Just for that sake, because that isn't where the team is. And it doesn't seem like that's what Greer. Listen to Greer, it's not what he's doing. But you got these guys who want to push. Sharks playoffs. Let's talk about this real quick. So the playoff picture right now is the Sharks are just outside that wild card spot. They have 66 points. They are behind the Seattle Kraken, who have 67 points. Now, if you look at the actual division, the Sharks right now are sitting in 5th, but it's not that far apart. So Anaheim's in first with 73 points. Vegas is next with 72. Those two are probably, you're probably not, you got to be pretty consistent to catch up to them at this rate. Edmonton has 68. Seattle has 62nd, and the Sharks have 66. So they're hovering outside. I will say, while them losing these last 2 games sucked, they at least got points out of them and continued to kind of put themselves in that position. And if you are where I am at this point, which is, rooting for them to squeak in just for them, then, they're still
you.
They're still within striking distance.
That's not where I am. That's
not anywhere near me.
Listen, man, I'd rather enjoy my team right now. Now, overall, where are they? They are 21st in the league. So listen, you want them to slip into a lottery zone, they can still do that. They can go either way here real easy. I think what would be annoying is if they're just outside the lottery zone and they don't make the playoffs, which they could also do fairly easily, and especially with the way Florida and New Jersey have sort of been, although New Jersey's on a bit of a winning streak right now. So that's where the Sharks are. If you're rooting for them to be in a lottery spot, hey, you're not too far off. If you're rooting for them to be in the playoffs, hey, you're not too far off. And I'll tell you what, it'll make the end of this season fun and something to watch either direction. In fact, it's probably the closest to relegation soccer you can get, where you're sort of like there's something above and below to root for. So that's where the Sharks are. You guys, 3 stars of the week. Where would you put him?
I'm gonna give a charity star to Wenberg because
he had a good week.
He had a good week. He's really, really winning my heart as our future third line center to bring of depth and scoring and a bit of responsibility. So 3rd for him. That 2nd star is kind of you know what? Fuck it. Sherwood can have a 2nd star because he scored points, and
yeah,
I guess I need to start liking him.
Yeah. Why fight it? He's here for 5 years.
We're stuck with him, so I better start liking him.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have a Shark who hits for effect because we haven't had that for a while. And of course, Celebrity gets the 1st star because it's Celebrity.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my 3rd star to a combo here. It's going to be Mook, Graf, and Warsofsky all together. And before you go, Warsofsky, I'm going to tell you why. First, Warsofsky defends a decision to not have Graf on the first line, and then immediately after making a shift and having success with it, knows he's going to be asked about it, handles it great, and all of that. Mook scores a goal right after his kid gets born and after that article. The reason I'm putting all 3 together is because I think all 3 have a little bit to do with Warsofsky and coaching. And again, I'm not saying he's doing the most incredible job here, but he, on both of those, and based off of the lineup the last couple of days, it was nice to see him admit that maybe he was, that maybe he needed to make a shift and then made the shift and stuck with it, versus where I think it's felt like he's been at points where someone's just kind of like, you want to go back to already blanking on his name. The last coach was like, you're in the doghouse and you're just kind of done. This is 2 where I think he's shown a little bit of humility, and that's great. I hope he can continue that trend because I do think the Sharks very easily could make the playoffs if the organization, if that was really the organization's goal, they could do it. They just need to make different coaching and lineup decisions to kind of get there. 2nd star, I agree with you, Colin. I think it's Sherwood. He hadn't had a lot of games to really sit with the team. He's now, had a couple under his belt. He's starting to fit in. He's definitely fitting in culturally. You can tell they're selling shirts with his quote on it already at the tank. And it's been encouraging to see him turn it on because much like you guys, I would not have been happy if he didn't start to, with some time, if he didn't start to fit in and we had wasted those 2 2nd-round picks. And then, of course, I agree. I don't know how you don't make it Macklin Celebrini unless, Ben, you want to be a contrarian there.
I'm going to be a super contrarian with my stars. So here we go.
Okay.
So my 3rd star is going to go to Colton Parayko for blocking a trade to the Sabres.
Yeah.
Using that power he was given. I mean, a bunch of guys apparently used their no trade powers to block trades, including Tyler Myers, Braden Shen, Mackenzie Weegar, etc. So several of those guys then ended up being traded anyway. But Parayko did not, so good on you, Parayko, 3rd star. My 2nd star is going to go to a general manager who made his team better for the playoffs, and that would be Chris McFarland of the Avalanche, who had a great trade deadline. And then my 1st star is going to go to a guy who got the best returns on bailing out of contention, which is the Blues and Doug Armstrong, who got multiple 1st-round picks for guys who probably shouldn't have gotten multiple 1st-round picks. So that's – and then I'm going to give an incomplete – to RGM, Mike
RGM. Yeah, that's
or D. Well, either one.
No. You know what? I'm exactly where you are on Greer. I think Greer's put the team in a good position. Now I need him to take the final steps.
He just didn't make a decision as to which way to go. That's the problem. Like he's like, are we tanking still, or are we going for the playoffs? And he kind of just.
See, but that's what I don't agree with. I think he did make it. I think he did make a decision. I don't necessarily think we love it. No. I mean, again, just going all the way back around to the front. If you listen to what he says and you want to take it at face value, which other than contract talk, which he avoids completely, seems like he can because he's consistent. He was looking to improve the team medium to long term. Didn't want to do a rental for the playoffs.
Sure.
Wasn't finding the price for the pieces he wanted to correct. And so, so then looked at the other offers that were coming in, because he said there were offers, and then needed to make a decision on whether or not the return was high enough for the effect it was going to have on the room. So it's a tough position.
He gets an F for making me watch Mario fucking Ferraro.
Yes, that's fine.
Quarter of this goddamn season.
That is, listen,
should have been moved for a 6-pack of beer. It doesn't really matter what the package was that was coming this way. You fucking take it to get that guy off.
Mario Ferraro will be what shapes my decisions on my career. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding.
No, I get it. Know.
It'll take that'll be like that person that'll put him in my doghouse, and he'll have a long way to get up. Even if he does everything else right, I'll always look back at that one.
Yeah, see, this why I am so deeply anti-playoff is because I think the thing he has to do right is put himself into a position to draft defense in this draft class, which has a bunch of right-handed defenders in the top 15.
He still could.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, we won't see
if
those
we make the
guys
playoffs. We won't
for a while.
No. You can move. He has players he can move. Do we want him to move them? No. Are we going to retain all those players? Also, no. Sharks fans, get ready, because if you think every single prospect that we have is going to wind up a Shark, I got bad news for you. That is not how it works ever. Whether it's because they don't develop.
Matthias Havelin's not going to be a Shark.
I mean, there are fans who are glued to Haltunen, and I'm like, I don't know. Not looking like it now.
But this is my problem. Is your argument is that okay, he doesn't need to worry too much about the draft position because his great trading skill is what's gonna get
I don't recall saying that at all. I never said anything about the draft position. What I'm saying is he has put himself in the position where he sells options. And that's a big deal when you look at like the end of the Doug Wilson era, where he was putting himself in position where he had no options, right? So I think going back, like, Ben, I think you're right in general. I think, it's easy to react to every single little thing the team does, whether it's Warsofsky or Greer. And I understand why. We get to analyze it, and we have a podcast. That's what we do part of the time. But also, like, Greer's put the team in a good position. He should still get some benefit of the doubt there. And, while don't think he had the best trade deadline in the world, he didn't handcuff himself. And while I don't think you get bonus points for that either, the Sharks have options. The Sherwood trade, the Sherwood contract, is it a great contract? Not really. Is it the worst contract ever? Also not really. And he has options for it later. So, I think we'll have to wait and see. And I do think this offseason will be one of the moments that you will really be able to firmly point at Greer and go, I don't like where you're headed, or I don't like how you're thinking, because this is the one that he cannot screw up.
Now, I think you do have a really good point that Greer has put himself into a better position with Celebrini than Wilson put himself into when he got Thornton. Like, ignoring the path to getting Thornton, once he had Thornton, I do think Wilson did worse management in the immediate years after that. So, fair. I think Greer does have an option to, ride the rocket to many cups, and I hope to enjoy that ride.
Greer is where Wilson was early on. Now the question is, as he starts to move into where Wilson was mid his tenure, can he get the team over the hump? And that is still the big question. He's done a great job of getting them out from under the shackles that they had put themselves in. He's done a great job of restocking the prospects. Did he get lucky with Celebrini, landing Celebrini? Yes, sure. I mean, I'm going to say lucky just because it's always a lottery, right? Like, we didn't get Schaefer, for example. But at the end of the day, him specifically, not anyone else, he has put the team in a good position. And now we begin the next phase this offseason of, can you now get past that point, get him over the hump? What we saw again with Wilson is no. And Wilson's mistake was Wilson tried to keep a core together for too long, even after, it wasn't doing it. And I'm not necessarily saying, that's a hard decision to make, but that's why we ended up where we were when Greer took over. So Sharks are in a good spot. There's reason to root for them. There's reason to be excited. I know we all want them to get over that hump, and that's why we're a little more sensitive to things, but just try to enjoy the ride. You know what I'm saying? Ben, stop rooting for them for a draft
enjoy
pick.
Mario Ferraro fucking giving up the puck in the defensive zone 1,000 times and pitching poorly 1,000 times.
Only a couple
more
fun. Only a couple more games of that, hopefully. Anyway, guys, we got to head out. It's been a fun podcast. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I ain't doing it.
Oh, bye-bye again.
Wilson could not draft.
Oh, bye-bye. All right,
I
gotta go to a play.
Yep.
That's fun. Talk to you later. Sorry for being late again, guys.
Yep.
Totally my bad. I'll write down 11 o'clock and put a sticky on my thing.
Okay. Have fun.
All right, Colin.
Be
Good
sure
luck.
to clap at the right times.
I will.